Hey guys, this is F here with another Ask.fm request. As always, if you wish to request anything you'd like for me to answer or I guess do, more so answering than anything, but if you wish to request it, go to ask.fm/SSF921 and it will be in the description of the video, so if you need the actual link, you can always go there. But for this video, it's another request and it's actually a really interesting one because I don't really get asked this often. To be quite honest, it's rare. Um, but one wanted me to make a video on my YouTube channel about the experiences I've had with the great personalities online and how I met them. I think I'll be more so focusing on how I met them, if anything, because the experiences for a lot of the personalities, it's kind of once in a blue moon. Like I usually only have them around the time we're recording stuff or, actually kind of in a call or whatever, just screwing around in between recordings, whatever. But how I met these great personalities online, I have no idea like where to start at because there were so many people to begin with. But I guess I'll start with the personalities that kind of launched things and kind of began it all for me. And those were Sonic Paradox. How I met them. Uh, I met this group. I met the higher ups at Sonic Paradox back in 2010, October 15, 2010. I signed up for the forums because I thought, you know what? I've kind of known about Sonic Paradox, and I watched the shorts, like the Sonic shorts, back in 2008. So I'm not no like even in 2010, I was no stranger to what Sonic Paradox did. I think I even saw the first like Sonic shits and all back then. Back when uh, during April Fool's Day and all, whatever. But I recall, like, like wanting a place to sign up to be like, you know what? How about just sign up to something where I could talk about Sonic and stuff? Because I was getting really big into Sonic at that time, and I guess I thought, you know what? Let's do that, you know. So I thought Sonic Paradox was the most familiar place that I was aware of, and I guess that's how it all began. Like, really, I signed up for Sonic Paradox, and it just so happened around that same time as when RGX, or Richie as we know him, uh, like he had to really get to work, and he was very, very busy at the time, and it just he was he had made a new subforum on SP for Sonic news and stuff like that, and it got to the point where he couldn't manage it anymore. So he looked towards the SP forums for for a news reporter to kind of replace him in that responsibility of managing that forum. And I was one of the people that signed up because I thought, you know what, I love doing the news. I love informing people. It's something that I like doing. I like doing that, and I don't know. It's just I was lucky enough to be the most. I guess I came off as the most mature, and I think that was what it was at the time. Was that I was very mature unlike the others, and compared to everyone else, I thought, you know what, may as well give it a shot, and that's how it all began. That's how I officially became a true person in the Sonic community. I guess you could say it was. I ended up meeting the staff only a few weeks after I joined the forums, and yeah, I never expected that to happen. But eventually, I got added into their Skype group a month later, because we all do have a Skype group where we communicate and stuff. And I'd say out of all the personalities I've met, I think the SP guys are the ones I tend to have the most, screwing around with, because they're always around in some way on Skype. But I ended up in there, and the rest is history for that. 2011 is when, like a year later or so, half a year later, around that, is when things began to take off for me in terms of meeting personalities. And I'd say it was mid 2011, around near the time the Macy's parade was supposed to happen. And I sent Sonic Rex, because at the time Last Minute Continue hadn't been created just yet. And Sonic Rex was still the main site. Sonic Rex was still the main thing before it changed to Last Minute Continue. and I sent them a tip about Sonic being in the Macy's parade, and that actually ended up being a article. And I believe they were one of the. I think only two of them actually did an article about it. Um, but what ended up happening is I sent that as a tip, and it got accepted. And it had thanks to SSF 1999 or 1991, 1999. That would be my Y2K version. But anyway, like thanks to SSF 1921 for tipping us off and all that. But that's sort of how they became aware of who I was, Sonic Rex, and more specifically AUK Kevin Eva. And that was sort of how it all began with, meeting Kevin and what would eventually lead to the Sonic Boom commentaries and being with Last Minute Continue for their streams and all later on. But there was actually more to that story than just, a random news tip, because although they knew, okay, there's an SS721 out there who tipped us off, they didn't actually meet me. And that what happened then, I'd say it was around a week or two later, around that, and the Sonic Show was doing one of their streams, because at the time the Sonic Show was doing streams pretty often, and they decided, I decided, I'm going to watch them, because it's Sonic and all that, and, I've become quite a thing about watching the Sonic community stream and all. Excuse me, burping, but, at the time, Jamie was there, Jamie Eggman. At the time, he was still known as Disco Ponies, mainly known as Disco Ponies. Kevin was there, Tanner was there. Quite a lot of the Sonic Show crew were there. Unfortunately, a few of them that were also there are not there anymore. Forget some of their names. What was that one person's name? Whatever. There were like 2-3 people during the Sonic Show streams that don't really show up anymore, which is unfortunate. But I think it was Gail was her name. I think around that. It's been so long, like 4 years. But at the time they were doing streams and all, and I think they were streaming Sonic Heroes, I think. And then they were like looking for a random person to add to the call, and I think it were along the lines of, hey, if anyone wants to join us, feel free. And I volunteered, and I got added in, and that's how I sort of met them. Met the Sonic Show crew is, through a random. Like a lot of my encounters were either because of luck, or because of just sheer connections. And the sheer connections started cropping up later on. But at the time, it was just sheer luck that kind of gave me the ability to meet these people, and I'm really glad I did meet them. But that's how I met the Sonic Show crew, was in 2011 when they were doing a Sonic Show live stream. And the best thing was, like I said, Kevin was there, and Kevin Eva, aka AUK, and at the time, he knew about the tip I made about the Macy's parade, but he didn't realize I was the one that made it. So the best thing was, like, I was a huge I'd fangirl over anything. Like, I remember like being such a huge like fanboy at the time. Like oh my god, it's the person behind Sonic Rex. I love what you guys do, and you have a great depository, and etc. etc. And like nowadays, it's just like, hey Kevin, how's it going? But in fact, that's kind of what I am like nowadays. It's like I don't really fanboy as much now, because I guess it's because of just the maturing or whatever. But at the time, I was like, hey, I'm people know me as SS7X21, and he was like, you're SS7X21? So you're the guy who made the tip? And I just said, yeah, and he's like, oh, hey, thanks for the tip. And that's sort of how we found out that I was the one that tipped them off of that. But yeah, that was an interesting little encounter, though, to kind of, where it was like, oh, hey, guess what? I'm the guy who tipped you off of that. And the best thing was like how Jamie almost kind of disconnected me from the call. Like he almost removed me from it because he thought I said a really really bad word at the time. And I don't know how I remember this, but Turned out I didn't actually say it, of course, because I don't really say that word, but yeah, it was interesting, needless to say, how close I was to screwing it all up. But that's how I kind of encountered the Sonic Show crew. Um, Around that same time as I believe is when I believe I really got my when I got the Sonic news show, you know, in gear. My podcast over on SP that had been going since February 2011, and I began inviting a lot of people, like guest after guest after guest. And it was through the Sonic News Show that I met the Hellfire Comms crew back when Gareth was still very much in the ranks of HFC. It's how I met Brain Scratch, specifically Lewis, um, because believe it or not, Nathan is known in the Brain Scratch crew much longer than I have, um, and it's part of why they talk with each other and a lot, and how they're very much friends, and because they know each other. I'm still, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a newbie to them, but I'm definitely not as familiar to them as Nathan is to them. Which I'm not complaining, mind you. That's completely fine. It's completely understandable. But if you're wondering why, you know, it seems Nathan and the Brain Scratch crew are doing a lot together, that's because they know each other a lot. And it's completely understandable. Like you would like to, don't you like to hang out with people you know a lot of, you know a lot and you love to be with, you know. But I know I'm the same way. But it was Nathan that actually formally introduced me to the vast majority of the Brain Scratch crew, and I believe at the time I had already kind of spoken to Ryan and I think John at the time. I think it was the first time around the time I also kind of encountered Ted, and because at the time I know I was speaking to them about doing the show and all, and I believe, however, I didn't have Lewis's information because he was a lot more withdrawn than the others, which again is very understandable because I believe at the time he was doing a lot more and he didn't have as much time. So it had to be a lot more kind of, what was it like? What's the word I look for? There was a lot more that had to be done in terms of coordinating for the show. And it was because of Nathan that I ended up kind of, finding out, how to get the show up and going with coordinated with the crew and all. And it was actually during the show, like pretty much the show itself was the first time I actually spoke to Lewis. So that was an interesting encounter, uh, and I still remember how we kind of introduced ourselves, which is quite interesting. But I have a very strange memory. Like I remember all this stuff, but like other things I might forget about. But I do believe my podcast show on SP is pretty much how I first encountered the Brain Scratch crew, and as I said, the HSC crew. It's also how I first kind of conversed with the crew at Radio Sega as well. It really was the launching pad. I'd say that show was really the launching pad for me. I still hope to get to it later on down the line because I would love to bring in even more guests. It's also how I kind of. It's also sort. See, here's the thing. It's not really how I met Clement either. Like we did get into a nice discussion on the show later on, but it was actually through Brain Scratch that I met Clement as well, and that was sort of what happened there. I can't recall how I met Matt. I think we found out because he knew like a couple of folks on SP. I think that was it at the time. It was, oh boy, when was this at the time? Like it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think. I think it was around that time. We were doing like, and at the time there was like Radio Sega podcast and all that, and Sonic Radio. I sort of met them through the their little podcast and stuff that I came across when they revamped it and came back, you know. But I believe Matt was one of the people listening in and stuff like that. I believe, and I guess that's how it all came from there. And eventually we started kind of conversing, and you know, it blew up from there. And I believe thinking who else. Um, I know I met another one through. I think it was through. This was around the point now when I began to get, start meeting people and personalities through, um, my connections at that point. Because um, at the time, like I said before, then it was just pure luck. I just so happened, hey, hi, how you doing? And it just blew up from there. But just random encounters and lucky streams that just happened to occur where they were looking for people and all. Um, but now was around the point where I think my connections started getting, I would say it was getting the better of me, but it was more like they were starting to become noticeable just how many connections I had. And because of that, I was starting to meet people that I wouldn't have otherwise met through just a random encounter. Um, because they don't really. It's not that they didn't really stream all that much. It was more along the lines of they didn't really converse with people outside of Twitter and maybe the occasional stream they might do once in a blue moon. But the personalities I did meet, like afterwards, I just so happened to know them, come to meet them because I was friends with someone they knew. Like for example, I met Kobe through Matt because of course they're big friends and all that, and they happen to know stuff. I met um, and of course I met their friends the same way through their connections and all, because they're friends and all. I met for TSSC and what I do on there, news reporting wise and all. I met them. I met Lewis. I think I met Lewis during on my show, like a year beforehand. Or no, it was 2 years before I joined TSSC that I met Lewis from TSSC, and we talked and had a conversation and all that. And then when the Sega Nerds came about and started doing their podcasts more often, eventually I got asked to be on the show, or either I got asked or I kind of you know, put myself out there and said, hey, I'm all for being on your show if you want, and they eventually obliged and went from there. And it was through Sega Nerds that I actually met Tristan, and that's how we sort of conversed. And then that was a year ago. And then half a year later, I ended up joining TSSE because it just so happened that Tristan had his new job and all at that point. But thinking who else? I know I met. Oh yeah, I also met Turbo the same way as I met the Sonic Show crew, because he was there at the time, and he was. I kind of want to say he was pretty big with the Sonic Show crew at the time. Like nowadays, they have kind of gone their separate ways, and he's more with Last Minute Continue now than the Sonic Show. But I did meet Turbo of Sega Sonic Radio through the Sonic Show's streams as well. Um, who else? I'm trying to think. It was through Matt that I also met the Sonic Central crew. Um, and I believe I've mentioned everything, but basically that's pretty much how I met everyone. I met the rest of the FTCR crew through Gareth, but yeah, I think I've mentioned everyone, and there's so many people I've conversed with over the years. Jeez, wouldn't be surprised if I forgot someone, but yep, that is pretty much it. So basically, if you want to know how I met them, either pure chance or it just so happened that the person I met, they were friends with someone I had already met. They were friends with someone, so connections, and it just so happened to be pure luck. So, yeah, I think that's it. My experiences with the great personalities online, though, like I said, other than the SP, it's not all too much. I mean, with Tails' channel, Cobra Ramani and Rakib, and with them, and Dominic, I tend to converse with them occasionally on Skype because I'm in one of their Skype groups. But unless I'm in one of their Skype groups, not all that much. Ooh, I know I forgot something. Mega G Wolf and also the people behind, like some of the people behind Sonic Retro. I met the latter through my show. I had a show guest starring a lot of the staff at Sonic Retro, and they just fucked around, and it was, oh boy, that was an interesting show. I'll tell you that much. You can see the show on the YouTube channel. If you find the Sonic Show playlist, you can actually see all of these shows I'm referring to, where I met all these people and had them all on. You can go there and see how it all began. But um, that's how I initially met the crew behind Sonic Retro. Quite a few of them, anyway, including Scarred Sun in them. And then later on, I'm trying to remember when this was, but it was when Sonic Hacking Contest 2013 happened. I sort of put my, again, this was an example of me kind of I just so happened to use an event that was happening or whatever, and I guess use that to my advantage. I don't like wording it that way because it makes it sound like I was trying to manipulate people, but it was more so along the lines of, hey, here's an event. I wanted to help out with this event, because I do like to help out with people a lot, and with events and all. It's the same way I've met the Respawn Point guys. It was because of the Sonic Marathon and all, and wanting to help out for charity and all. But it was, yeah, it was because of I lost my train of thought. My mind just went, you know. Um, but yeah, it was because of the Sonic Hacking Contest that I met the crew behind it, and along with more of the people behind Sonic Retro and SSRG and them. It was, and I put my name out there, because I was covering the stream and all, and I got added in like halfway into the thing. And then 2014 came around last year, and I was able to put my name down in advance because I was conversing with them on Skype and all, and so it was easier than that. I also helped them get Cobra Namani and Tails channel on, which was an interesting addition. And it was through 2014 that I started kind of talking in Mega G Wolf's chat more, and I had him on for a stream before he was going to do his part. Which reminds me, I gotta keep in mind that more than likely he's going to be streaming at 4 p.m. my time during the Sonic Hacking Contest, because now I'm going to be judging as well as streaming, so I have to keep this in mind. But I did have him on that way. But I was in, I think 2013, 2014, I was in the Sonic Hacking Contest, results shows. I don't know if they're going to be doing that this year. Things are still being kind of ironed out. I mean, there's still 3 months before the contest week is supposed to happen, so, But, yeah, I think that's everything. I've gone on for a tangent. I don't know how long this was, but I hope you guys did enjoy that. It probably gave you good insight as to how you can meet, you meet people, and how you can get kind of, fun little experiences with them, and, how you can have a good time, and how you can make friends and all. It's just, don't be an idiot. That's really all it boils down to. Is as long as you're an idiot, as long as you're polite and respectful, and you keep in mind the things that they go through just as much as they will likely keep in mind the things you go through, you'll make friends. Like, it's really not that as hard as you might think it is, but just don't be an idiot. And just so happens that once you start getting along with people, they'll start introducing you to others, and you'll be able to meet more people and make more friends, and it's just, that's how it goes. It's not so much that I wouldn't say it was pure luck that kind of got the ball rolling, but eventually that kind of gave way to just knowing people, and the more friends you make, the more friends that you'll have that introduce you to other potential friends. But that's how it pretty much went for me. That's pretty much my story about how I ended up in the way I am right now. And yeah. So, with that in mind, I will see you guys next time for the next Ask.fm request video. If you have any, like I said, if you have any requests, feel free to go to ask.fm/SSF1991. But for now, this is SSF signing out. Sayonara, guys.